Hello, everybody. You know who I am. It's Dennis from the West Ham Way. I'm joined by Bill West from Garage Football, from JP from JPWHU TV, and Mark from This Is the Music. How are we doing tonight, gents?
All good, mate. Thank
Yeah,
you
good
very
thanks,
much.
mate. Very good, thanks, Dennis.
Nice to
How
be
are
back
you?
on again.
Good to be back. Good to be back. Sadly, what is not good to be back is yet another debate about VAR. So, similar to Edwin Starr, who asked War, what is it good for? We're going to ask VAR, what is it good for? Bill, has it gotten specifically worse this season from last season, do you feel, with what's happening in Stockley Park?
Yeah, I'd say it has. I think at times last season it was working really well in terms of they were getting decisions made a lot quicker, and it was used to a reasonable sort of standard, and used in the correct way. But now it seems to got back to how it was back in the 1920 season in the Premier League, where they just didn't know what they were doing and decisions were taking too long. It's getting worse now. I think the technology is fine, but it's just the people, the referees that are using it have proven to be incompetent. I actually quite admired Michael Oliver at the weekend, where he actually stuck with his original decision. I think was it Brentford Leeds? I think he did.
Mm-hmm.
So I quite admired him for sticking with his decision to give a penalty. But I think obviously we talk about the ridiculous decision at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. I mean, I don't know. I know the referee was told to go to the monitor, but I don't know. Even seeing the footage, still don't know now how he gave it. So it just it seems to be getting worse. This talk of VAR, we should get rid of it. Well, we're not going to get rid of it, are we? It's not going to happen. But it's got to be used a lot better. And unfortunately, the officiating has been getting worse and worse anyway, especially with Howard Webb and Mark Clattenburg since they sort of retired and left, and even go back to Graham Poll, Jeff Winter, all those kind of guys. And now it's getting worse, worse and worse each season. So that's not just on the on-field officiating, let alone in the VAR hub at Stockley Park. So it's and I think the decisions are taking 3-4 minutes at a time, and it's getting a bit of a joke, really.
And obviously, we're not just saying this talking about what's happened at Stamford Bridge, although is mainly been the talking point here, as it is a West Ham issue. But this is an issue that's consistently affecting most of the Premier League. JP, do you feel that, for example, I remember Mark Halsey a few years ago advised that it was almost an unspoken thing that larger clubs got the rub of the green when it came to refereeing decisions. Do you think this is a continuation of the inconsistencies we've seen probably over the last decade of Premier League football? Or do you feel that this is a whole new level of weird, really, when it comes to decision making?
I think it's kind of a bit of both, then, to be honest with you. I mean, I've been a big advocate of it since it was used in the World Cup 4 years ago. Because the World Cup itself proves how vital this technology can be as long as it's used correctly. That's the end. That's the issue here. It's not. There's no issue with the technology. What we see on Match of the Day or replays on Sky Sports, whatever, is the same views that these guys see out in Stockley Park. Was it 7 or 8 different angles of stuff, and also but at the same point, granted, Bill, you're absolutely right here, fella. They are literally taking way too long. 100%. Not to requote what Alan Shearer said at Match of the Day over the weekend, but minimal impact with maximum gain, and that was the other cliche that was being touted about was it was only just make sure to rule out clear and obvious errors. But if you think about it, in the last week or so alone, bearing in mind we're recording this on the 7 days after the Spurs game, that we saw that penalty decision ruled out correctly, but it took 3 to 4 minutes, which implies it wasn't a clear and obvious error. Therefore, the penalty should have stood. But obviously, the technology came in and said, no, that's totally incorrect. It was basically a free kick. And likewise, and as I say, the flip side of the coin is what happened at Stamford Bridge on I keep saying Sunday, Saturday before you say anything, Mark. Because it was literally that, just proven that proven that Madley went no, continued to play on correctly. So went to them, was told to look at the monitor, and apparently agreed with what the guys what Gillett and Hatzidakis were saying out there, and didn't stand his ground and became a jelly spine, shall we, to put it as politely as possible, because I'm going to try and keep the language very, very clean here. But what's the most annoying thing about it is the contradiction of how the VAR has been used, or more specifically, the contradiction of the repercussions of the apology that came out on Sunday. Mike Dean screwed up at the start of the season, was off VAR for a week. Jared Gillett was exactly in the same position as refereeing Leicester, the Leicester home game this weekend. How is that consistency? It really is. I just don't understand it, especially bearing in mind Gillett came over with not exactly the best of records over in this the Aussie Super League as a referee. It just goes back to the old cliche of the fact that there's bigger things going on in, as you said at the start of the question there, Dan, there's bigger things going on there in terms of where the points need to be awarded to certain clubs. You can't not argue the fact to the contrary on that, because at the end of the day, when it was all being introduced, we thought, great, that goal against Liverpool at home would never have stood. We've seen incidences over the last 3 to 4 years where it still does stand. It's just, get rid of the monkeys and bring in some people that actually know how to look at a television.
You've took the word almost out of my mouth there, JP. It's a bit like when you got the monkeys at the typewriters in The Simpsons. It's the best of times, it's the blurst of times. Oh no, Liverpool have got another penalty. Equally, the term you were looking for was jellied invertebrates. Was the politically correct term for people that are spineless. Mark, what do we do in a situation where we hypothetically miss out on a European place, or God forbid, go down by 1 point, or on goal difference where that point would keep us up? This whole lessons will be learned later. What do you think there should be more repercussions for people in Stockley Park that make these decisions right, rather than silly man, which is pretty much what's going to happen here?
Well, I think the most obvious answer is that you go, what happened to us a few years ago with Sheffield United, and you start suing either the Premier League or the FA or the was it the PGMOL? Realistically, it's not going to happen, because they'll just deny the mistake ever happened, or they'll come out with some other long-winded statement that would take months for anyone to understand and really pick the bones out of it. I think really, as JP said, obviously there with a Shearer quote was something that I totally agreed with. Because the whole idea of it was to try and you think after the games, where we'd be down the pub or whatever debating, was this the right decision? Did they get that right? It was all part of the experience. And in the way, VAR was meant to take that away. However, obviously, as we've alluded to, obviously the Tottenham game, where it took sort of 4 or 5 minutes or whatever that was for that decision to be made. Again, the decision against Chelsea, again, that was another 4 or 5 minutes. And I think this is the issue that we've all got really as supporters, is that why is it taking so long to make these calls? But also as well, for me, obviously we see it in cricket, and we see it obviously in rugby union as well, is that as the supporters that are in the crowd hear what is being said. Now, clearly it can't be that difficult, because, you have, at half time, we get the music, we get Chris Skull doing his pitch side interviews. So it can't be that difficult for them to be able to tune into the stadium sound speakers so that we understand what's being said, because I think this is part of the problem as well. No one knows. And then you get, with all due respect to him, I quite like Graham Souness. I quite like his no holes barred approach to his punditry. However, his opinion, and that's ultimately what it is at the end of the day, on Talk Sport on Monday, was the biggest load of tosh.
That was crap, wasn't it?
I've ever heard.
That dispels, Mark. Sorry to interrupt. That dispels the wanting of ex-players to get involved with VAR. With Graham Souness's opinion, that's just drowned in water after that ridiculous comment.
Absolutely, I know, and as well, and just on the ex-players, I know like a lot of people complain. I can't remember what game it was. It might have even been the Man United game who they played on Sunday against Arsenal, and I think that they was talking of the referee was from Salford and someone else was from Greater Manchester or whatever.
On VAR, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, obviously, as Bill's just mentioned there, like people are talking about ex-players getting involved in the VAR decision making. Well, surely that's the same thing as referees, because they're going to be biased then towards their club. Do you know what I mean? For me, it doesn't make sense. I think ultimately we as supporters all need better understanding of how they come into the decisions live, not with an apology, as we saw on, it was nice for them to actually come out and say, yeah, we were wrong, and it was refreshing to hear. I think that's another bugbear that we've all had with referees over the years, but it needs to be, that ain't good enough. It needs to be resolved there and then in real time for me.
And also, let's not forget this is the second apology in as many seasons. Yeah, something has to change. The most reasonable thing, going back to what Dennis was saying before, unfortunately his internet just kicked him out by the looks of things. What Dennis was saying was about what are going to be the repercussions later on in the season if an apology is like that, and a goal is being ruled out that could have caused the equaliser and therefore a draw. Surely 2 points should be taken away from Chelsea and a point given to West Ham, and not just. I'm just saying in that, because that was basically what Lampard was arguing last season. They would have had a draw if that decision had been made correctly. He said stick your apology. Apology doesn't change the fact that we lost the game. And that's the bigger picture here. Is there has to be. It's all right, all well and good saying, yeah, we'll look into it, and we're sorry that it's happened. If you acknowledge that it's been a fault, then surely a decision needs to be corrected. You've got two options. As I say, a point being awarded, or the game gets replayed. I mean, let's not forget that there's there is going to come a time where VAR is going to do more than just checking for fouls in the box. It's going to check balls going out on the wider side of the pitch. It's bound to be checking incidences like Reece James kicking out on Antonio, Silva barging into Antonio left, right, and centre and getting away with it. Yet he does it once back on him and he gets booked for it. He gets a heavy talking to, I should say, because of it. It's the wider picture is go. What's VAR good for? Is a perfectly easily used system. Just more training and how to read the game is the answer. If we can all see it, with the exception of those who like to work for people that work for places that like to do clickbait, can't see what's going on, then surely the bigger picture shows that the majority are correct. Therefore, more training has to be done for those that in the minority that don't understand what the game's about nowadays.
Yeah, and I think JP, I mean, how UEFA do it, like the UEFA competitions, obviously you mentioned the World Cup, Champions League, Europa League. It's not perfect how they have it, but whenever you watch European competition, VAR is run so much better how they do it. The Premier League completely butcher it, and they have done ever since they've started using it, as I say, 1920. So, and I agree with you, Mark, about the cricket, example, obviously we're big cricket fans, and how they do it with like, particularly the soft signals when there's a low catch or whatever. They obviously the umpires give a soft signal whether it's out or not out, and they the evidence has to prove conclusively one way or the other, like to go against the umpire soft signal. So, and also
like with tennis as well, isn't it? It's the same thing with tennis.
Yeah.
They were it literally was like the first VAR. Seeing the players have 5 calls per each game, saying was that in or out? It was the first example, and that's where it's originally escalated from.
The original for that is the issues with that is it's a tennis cricket slower game. However, like I said, it can work. In my honest opinion, you need ex-professionals reviewing it. Honestly, as the day is long, I'd have Alan Shearer and Martin Keown instead of Match of the Day studio. I would have them at Stockley Park, for example. I'm just using Martin Keown as an easy example and Shearer as an easy example because they're the ones saying that it's going wrong. And I think an attacker and a defender would be the perfect people to sort of judge fairly. Well, hang on a minute. They've been in that situation. They've lived it, quite recently as well. And the thing I wanted to come back to with Mark was, he makes a fantastic point about how easy it can be for refs to make a decision. One of the few things American football does very well is the referee has to explain to the crowd, right, I've stopped this passage of play because this player did this and things like that. It'd be so easy for the referee just to go like that. Worst case scenario, the stadium boos. Guess what? They're gonna boo anyway. For example, I remember against Spurs, I can't remember which Spurs player it was, but absolutely like clotheslined Bowen off the ball. VAR wasn't even checking that because VAR only looks when the referee gets a mistake. It's very rarely they'll go check a possible red card because the referee didn't give a free kick or anything. It didn't look at it. Eventually, like you say, like you're saying about balls going out of play and things like that, VAR will hopefully be brought in for things like that without slowing the game down too much. But on the subject of both Spurs and the Chelsea game, we saw two players get on the score sheet that's been in for a lot of flack recently in Antonio and Thomas Soucek. So would you describe this as a return to form, or okay, you both scored a goal, one of which was effectively a tap-in? Mark, I'll come back to you as someone that wasn't at the Spurs game but watching on BT Sport. How did you feel Thomas Soucek played, and how do you think Antonio played up front? Because obviously, when we were at the game, we had a slightly different view, but wouldn't be watching the whole of the game like you would on TV.
Yeah, I have to correct you there, Dennis. I was there a very
sorry,
rare outing. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought you said you were watching it. You watched it at home. Apologies.
Yeah, no, and I know he's not here tonight, but Charles Johnson, I saw you creeping out early from your seat.
And he still turns up later than everyone else.
I mean, I had a plane to catch at 6 a.m. the next day. I still stayed for stoppage time.
So I'm not sure what his excuse was, but anyway, sorry, Charles. No, I mean, look, to be fair, I mean, to be fair, look, obviously, it's fantastic that both of them, obviously, backing amongst the goals. That's part of the reason, especially obviously Antonio being the centre forward, and obviously it's a big part of Soucek's game. I felt Soucek against Tottenham. I think actually, I don't think he's not that I've seen anyway. I think he did a lot of work defensively, which I think has actually gone unnoticed across the social media aspect. I think a lot of people have just concentrated on his goal, which was a fantastic goal, really nice bit of composure. And big shout out as well to the ball boy for that goal as well, releasing the ball quickly to Vlad. But are they back in form? I think after one, maybe two games, it's probably a little bit too premature to say that. But I think it's an encouraging sign that that they have put in the performance. I'm not bothered how Antonio scores his goals, whether or not if they're going from 30 yards out, or whether or not if he kicks it in from 2 yards off his backside, whatever. The most important thing is that he's doing his job, which has got a knock-on effect, obviously, on Scamacca, not maybe having to be left in the European games. But look, I think it's a positive start for both of them. I think they both needed it in terms of their confidence and probably a bit of a reassurance as well. To I think there's rightly so. I think that the fans have maybe been giving them a little bit of stick. Antonio's gone such a long time without scoring a goal and not looking likely to score either. So hopefully this will give him a boost. And the same as well with Soucek. I mean, he's a limited player, from in between the two penalty boxes, but get him in the penalty box, and as we've seen time and time again, he can cause havoc. I wouldn't be looking to drop him or anything like that just yet. I think he deserves a little bit longer. Let him get his form back. I'm not saying that we give him 6 months or anything like that, but let's give him, 4 or 5 games, and let's have another look to see where he is at the end of that cycle. And if he's still not performing, then you might have to go, okay, you're going to have to sit aside for X amount of games.
I mean, it was all very valid points there, and JP, who are confident you were at the Spurs game because I physically saw you both before and after the game. It's impossible to miss you in your blue and claret suit jacket. Do you feel, for example, do you feel that Antonio up front should have a run of games, or do you feel we should pick and mix between him and Scamacca depending on the opposition and their defensive traits? I.e., we saw him be marked out of the game against Brighton, but then have an absolute stormer against Tottenham.
Yeah, that's a fair point, mate. Fair questions. At the end of the day, if we had 2 other strikers, I'd say rest him, to be fair. I really would. But we haven't, so we've got the, Scamacca's obviously just coming back from a throat infection training, so he might not be fully fit over the next week or so. I doubt it. But personally, I would start him. Definitely would, because easy tapping or not, he's got that goal confidence now. Hopefully, at least anyway. And as a result of it, we need him to be a little bit more agile, a bit more on the ball, because he's been off it. As has Bone, you can argue that on there as well for that matter. But it's a difficult one, because say if we were like Nottingham Forest's squad, then we'd have no problems with giving them a bit of a rest here and there. Personally, I think we should rotate the two. Premier League and Europa, not just keep one for the Premier League and one for Europa. Do it vice versa as well. But obviously, which is hopefully going to come later on in the season. But in terms of Antonio at the moment, just see what he can do, because we can't afford to do anything else other than that. That's the problem.
I mean, if we had Forest's squad, we'd have 2 team coaches going to Chelsea last weekend. So, imagine David Sullivan. It cost him £100,000, let alone £50,000 for a cup away fixture. Bill, how do you feel with Soucek, for example, with his improved game, especially against Spurs? Do you feel again we stick with him, or do we while he's in form, or do we look to either drop Paqueta back in as an 8 and play Fornells as a 10? How would you play the central midfield moving forward? Let's say not just we're talking not just Steaua Bucharest, but we're talking next 3-4 games in our run-in.
Yeah, I'd keep Soucek in the side. I think he's played well, not just obviously getting the goal against Tottenham. I was there at Stamford Bridge on Saturday, and I thought defensively, obviously, as Mark said, his defensive work goes under the radar. It's not going to get many engagement on Twitter or whatever, but he wins the headers, makes interceptions, provides a shield along with Declan in the middle. So he's starting to, which he wasn't doing at the start of the season. And on the ball, he was woeful. So, but he's been a lot better on the ball, just passing the ball that little bit quick. He's never going to be Michael Carrick or Paul Scholes and ping 50 yard. He's never going to be able to do that. But at least get the ball, pass it to someone else who can do that, or get the ball moving forward, which he's doing a lot better. He's doing that quicker. So, and as I say, he's been a threat in both boxes and providing that shield in front of the back four or the back three. So. He's been good a lot better, and then Antonio, who got the goal on Saturday, but his all-round play was really, really good. I think he's refreshed, having obviously Scamacca another option up front has really helped. Actually, I've got to say, and yeah, it's a shame he had to go off on Saturday because he was knackered and was on the yellow. But I think I tell you what, I thought Cornet, I thought he played well when he come on as he played as the centre forward as the number 9. I thought he done really well. Obviously, unlucky not to get the equaliser, and on another day, obviously he gets that goal, that header, which hit the post. Unfortunately for him, but I think he looked a threat in that number 9 role. So that might be an option if Scamacca's not fit for the next couple of games. But yeah, I think it's good to see both of them and in form. Obviously, or getting back to someone in their best form. So hopefully it continues.
Mm-hmm. It could be also maybe against Steaua, we played Bowen up top, thinking, okay, Jared, you need another goal. You got one in the playoff, admittedly first leg, but it could be that we play Cornet outright. And equally, if Cornet scores that header that hits the post, we're now annoyed that we've lost the last minute winner rather than the last minute point. So all could be swings and roundabouts. Another thing that, apologies if you mentioned it, JP, but with Antonio on Spurs, around the time Højbjerg was doing his play acting, getting his trying to change his boots, Mickey was the one firing the team up, demanded the ball off the ball boy, held up the ball and flicked it. Brilliant flick on for Soucek to score. So as much as Soucek gets applauded for that goal, and we mentioned about the ball boy, also Mickey Antonio was at his absolutely inspired shithouse best there, really. But going on at someone else who really impressed in that game, arguably could have got the winner against Spurs had he not left it for Emerson, was Paqueta. I mean, how has his first steps on the pitch been for us? Bill, go back to you on reversing around the board here. Do you think he's lived up to the hype? Because he's when he came on to be subbed on. That's probably the biggest ovation I've seen since the Mark Noble testimonial. Bear in mind, I didn't make the City game at home last season for the Mark Noble farewell. It was almost as if Paolo Di Canio had stepped onto the pitch again.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Obviously, we've saw him, against when he played for Lyon in the Europa League, and he's got that star quality, and you can see it straight away. And then he's got that real, obviously, South American tenacity and determination as well, and he's doesn't get bullied off the ball too easily either. So he's got that sort of physical presence as well, which obviously will help in this division. So yeah, looked great when he came on against Tottenham, that half-hour cameo in the. As I say, I was there on Saturday, and he played from the start, and he played well, actually. I mean, at the first half, neither West Ham or Chelsea played very well, but second half, when the game was electric, he really stood out. Good. So obviously, it's only his second game's first start. I think he settled in really quickly. Good sort of. Obviously, he's got good passing range that obviously holds the ball up well and holds defenders off. And I think he's, when you have players like that, obviously players around him will play better, and naturally our passing will get better with someone like him in the side. So that was certainly really obvious to see in the second half, particularly against Chelsea. So I think he's hit the ground running, and he's only going to get better, which is obviously really exciting.
And with that, back to the studio.
Well, back in the studio is JP. JP with Paqueta. Where do you think his best position on the pitch is going to be for us in the limited amount you've seen of him? Is it as a strict number 10? Because a lot of people were calling for him to be played as a number 8 alongside Rice. What's your opinion on that?
Can't say, mate. I haven't seen enough of him to be able to say a position but where do I think we need him to be? Definitely sitting alongside Rice, but also sitting in front of him at the same point, being that spinal cord, as it were, from the defence to whoever's going to be up in the number 10 position, be it Fornells, be it Ben Rama, be it Lanzini, whoever it's going to be. But very, very impressed with his technique. Making his debut against Spurs, I thought he looked pretty nervous because there was a couple of things that and I think on any other day he would have buried from his reputation and what I can vaguely remember of playing against him last season. But also with Chelsea, Bill, you're absolutely spot on there, mate. He looked like it was like a duck taking the water in the Premier League. He really, really did. Little glimpses here and there of what we can expect from him in terms of his ball control, like you're saying, his passes and everything. So that's why I said back to the studio, mate, because you've nicked like 95% of what I wanted to talk about. And I'm sure probably what Mark's thinking as well, to be fair. But yeah, I do generally think he's going to be a really, really good addition to the side and give it, because you could tell when he came on against Spurs, everybody started to lift their game a little bit. It's like, shit, okay, we know what he's like now. We've got to try and compliment him. And one thing I'm really looking forward to is the trio of him with Cornet and Scamacca. The three of them together, I think it would be absolutely fucking lethal, really lethal. Yeah. Especially bearing in mind nobody really knows, with exception of Conte, nobody ever really knows what Scamacca's capable of. Not many people know what Paqueta's able to do. We know what Cornet's able to do from what we saw at Burnley last season. But you put those three together, I think it's going to be lethal. I think it's going to get us a few points where I think we, like for example, when we're at the pub at the start of the game, we think we're going to get a draw here. They could be the guys who get us all 3 points. We'll have to wait and see. But it's very, very promising times.
Definitely.
And obviously, when he came on, he was again winning balls and almost walking through some Spurs players. Something certain players try to do and fail. Certain other South American players we have. However, Mark, would you be looking at a potential change in formation then, with, for example, the fact we do have 4 players that can play at a number 10 alongside several players that can play out wing, in order to accommodate for the likes of Scamacca, Cornet, and Paqueta in our starting 11?
Looking at how Moyes has sort of wants to set up, I think he's either going to be 4 at the back or he's going to be sort of 3-4-3, 3-5-2, really, whatever you want to call it. So I don't think that he will accommodate where we have a situation where we have maybe like a double, like number 10 type thing, or a false 9 or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. For me, the one thing or two things really that stood out for me with his cameo against Tottenham was first of all, when he's receiving the ball, he's always on the half turn. Excellent body position. That's exactly how you need to be when that ball's coming into you, because you straight away you've got your vision of the pitch where everybody is. Straight away, bang, off you go, pass it. Obviously, we've seen.
Very good point, mate. It's a very good point. Yeah, it's a lot of again, and sorry to interject, mate, but contribution that I think a lot of us haven't really noticed it from that side of things is anticipation.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. And the other thing as well, which you two have you and Bill have already sort of alluded to, really, was the fact that he's not afraid to do the other side of the game. Yeah, we're looking at him and we're going, oh, he can do step overs, he dribble at people, whatever. But the thing that impressed me the most was his first tackle. He's there. He's not going to let anyone bully him. He is going to press when the opportunity presents itself. We've seen other players. Obviously, Dennis just mentioned a couple of our other South American players who weren't really interested, or any player for that matter, who aren't interested in that side of the game. But he looks like he is to me from the little cameos. The only thing I disagree with what JP said was that for me, I think at the minute, while he's adapting to the league as much as anything, I would look to try and get him in that number 10 role, just to give him a little bit more freedom and a little bit more time on the ball, because I think at the moment teams are going to be a little bit unsure. Who is he? What can he do? And part of my thinking behind that is that obviously we've tried Lanzini in the 10 and we've tried Fornals. Yeah, they've had the odd game here and there where you think, oh, brilliant, this is it. They're going to kick on now, and they've shown what they can do. And then they'll have a couple of games where their use of the ball isn't very good, or maybe they go missing for large periods of the game. So I'd kind of like just to see something fresh in that particular role. And as I say, I think Moyes is going to stick with this, either whatever you want to call it, 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. 3-4, whatever it is, what we've seen so far this season. The thing that as JP said, I'm really excited to see Paqueta, Cornet, and Scamacca on the pitch together. I think that's just going to add so much to our game, pace, power, and I think things really that we have probably been missing. Maybe not quite so much in recent times. But I think sort of historically over a period of time, they were things that you would probably say that we haven't really had in our starting 11. But I think now with them three potentially, especially on the counter attack, I mean, it'd be ideal. Especially we did sort of look to park the bus a little bit, I guess, against Chelsea. But I think that just gives us another option rather than just relying on set piece or something like that. Just give us a new threat going forward. But yeah, really excited and can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, and you saw the. I'm sorry, Dennis. So we saw with Dimitri Payet, when he played the start, obviously he had that amazing star quality, and look how all the attacking players improved when he was on the pitch with us. And I think Paqueta is going to have the same, similar sort of impact. Really, I think the attacking players, the chemistry and the wavelength and their attacking abilities will naturally get better the more he plays. So it's been obviously a good start, but it's obviously exciting knowing it's going to get even better than this.
Sorry, Dennis.
Right.
Take a back seat, mate. Take a back seat.
For me, I know this is probably getting maybe a little bit carried away, but I think you want to build your team around your best attacking player. I think that we certainly got the potential, and to establish himself as that here. I don't think Moyes will necessarily. I know he started him, which surprised me against Chelsea, but I think that Moyes might hold him back in one or two games here and there, so we might have to wait a little bit longer. But for me, I think you've got to look to build your team around him and just say, go out there and do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I think he started against Chelsea is he came on against Spurs and fitted more or less like a glove. There was a few, there's a JP things, there's a couple of few things he may have misstepped, but that's where the comparisons to Payet were I've already seen bounded about. People saying, "Oh, don't get too ahead of yourself." But since Payet was only here for a year and a half, unless things go really south, I can't imagine Paqueta leaving us within two years, really. like Paye did. The other comparison that a person I go to football with, Rebecca, made is a bit like imagine Juninho at Middlesbrough kind of impact, which is a bit of a throwback for people
That's a
watching. But
throwback, yeah.
Juninho at Middlesbrough, just without the raw pace that he had when he first went there.
Yeah, not a bad comparison, to be fair,
Yeah.
with Juninho, to be honest. I hadn't really thought about that.
That's a bit of a gauntlet being slapped there, to be fair, but it's yeah, you know, it is. It's going to be entertaining to see this because and obviously, you know, as we all know, we've had 8 new signings come in. We can't get carried away with any of them whatsoever. Cornet a little bit more because, as I said, you know.
Yeah.
And likewise to a degree with Areola, because we saw him last season. We know what he's capable of, his faults and everything. But you know, throughout the whole of the season, we've really got to wind it down a little bit and just wait and see what happens towards the end of the season. And just then the end is the only, as me and Dennis were pretty much talking about when we were going through a few things the other week, because you just give them time, see how they get on, and then that's when we can really judge them. You know, like for example, yes, we're all right. We love getting carried away with stuff. We've, you know, football supporters been doing it for donkey's years. You know, but like for example, you know, when Vlasic made his debut against, what was it, Southampton at the start of last season, everybody said, right, he's going to kick on, it's going to be brilliant, and he wasn't. So it's we have to be patient, which is hypocritical because football fans aren't patient, but we have to be as patient as we possibly can be.
I think it's different with Paqueta because he's proven himself at the highest level for a substantial amount of time with Lyon, and you can see it, as I say, in his 90 minutes, like, or 70, well, about 100 minutes he's probably played, and like you can already see the quality already. And he's only, how many days he trained with us? Not much. Do you know what I mean? So I think for him to start, start sort of hit the ground running straight away, if, as I say, is really really exciting.
Okay, I'll retract that. 3 of the 8 we can get carried away.
What about, can we squeeze a 4th one in there? Get you to change your mind. What about our German centre half? What do you think of him?
What, Kehrer?
Yeah.
Yeah, very impressive, mate, for considering the money we paid for him. You know, we're laughing at, you know, it's a bit banter with the Fulham fans. Oh, can you? They want to, you know, you kept you know, we got rid of the receipt. You know, do you know what I mean? The sale's gone through, kind of thing. Like to sell Diop for 15 million and get Kehrer for 10 plus add-ons or whatever. Still, is incredible how quickly he's adapted. He's been amazing, I think.
Yeah,
Fulham fans have been eating their words. The amount of people that replied to my video saying that we were just being salty. I'm like, about that.
Yeah,
about that. So apologies, my internet cut out there for a minute. I'm not sure if we've moved on to the next subject. Are we still talking about
but it
signings?
just brings it quite nicely to it, mate.
It does, because that's what I was bringing it to. So with Anderson, the excitement around Felipe Anderson, fans' excitement, to the opposite of a player that had very little fanfare. In fact, there were some infamous words said on this channel, which were repeated a lot over Twitter by a former presenter of us. However, when you talk about Craig Dawson's dilemma, obviously he was very much had 1.5 feet, and I think out the door with both his hands holding onto the railings to get out of us on deadline day. But you know, circumstances work their way around of him staying. JP, what is your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on the entire situation surrounding Craig Dawson with his commute coming down and where he is as a footballer right now?
Well, I've got nothing but a heavy heart for him. I really do. If we'd have known, well, if Bednarak hadn't have taken the carrot from Villa, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's as simple as that. That's how it works on deadline day. That's how it works in all transfer windows, to be honest. Once one player moves, the whole knock-on effect goes on, and it's all the rest of them. I do feel really sorry for him from that point of view. I get it. You know, he doesn't want to be in London for as long as possible, but he's honouring his contract. Fair enough. Part of me was thinking if we had a few more quid in the bank, I wouldn't have been at all surprised because we haven't done this for decades. Sold off his last year of his contract and let him go.
Did it with Wilshere?
Yeah, I know, but that was under more extenuating. So I'm saying about somebody who's actually playing more than 3 minutes a year.
Playing games on the pitch.
Last time I saw
Got a poster
Wilshere
on it,
play, it was down Power League in Watford.
Power League.
Not even joking, genuinely.
No,
It was
I know.
a power. He rocked up
That's
a
the funny
Power
thing
League
about
last
it.
year.
But that's the funny thing about it. But that's what I'm saying.
Limping.
If we had a few more quid, I generally would have thought we would have honoured, given bought him out of his contract so we could go and sort his family out. But we haven't, so we couldn't. But as I say, I don't begrudge him for asking for that to happen. Same thing with Diop. We said, look, if you can't tell me what my future is, let me go. And that, obviously Fulham eventually met what we wanted for him and stuff. But at the same point, we just got to. He's a professional. Just keep the tabs and see what happens with him in January.
Yeah,
Brilliant. So Bill, with the fact that we 1 foot at the door, let's say hypothetically you went to either Villa or Wolves. What were the odds on him when we play them breaking Paqueta's leg, scoring a 90th minute winner, and clearing an equaliser off the line? How much money would you have put on that happening?
Oh, grand. I don't know. Like, sure, like it was going to be red. It's like when Lingard scored against us last season for Man United. You just knew it was going to happen. So they might as well just give us the money.
Yeah,
So,
but
suspended betting.
yeah. So as an add-on to that, like with how much obviously we completely get for his reasons for wanting to go, bearing in mind what the situation was when he joined us, just how much of a loss do you think it would be on the training ground and even in certain situations where we need a solid backup? Should we ever pick up a red card and an injury? Do you feel that if we had lost or now we've kept Dawson, would this potentially be, for example, a bit of a let off for us?
Yeah, I think who would have thought 2 years ago that we'd be sort of really disappointed that Craig Dawson would be leaving the club. That obviously just shows how well he's played for us and how he's elevated his game as well. I thought he was a decent enough player, but been relegated a couple of times with West Brom and Watford. But I thought he was a limited, decent enough Premier League backup, but nothing more than that. In a way, he's just elevated his game to get to the point of getting in the Europa League Team of the Year last season. I mean, that's just crazy. And the fact, he's on the ball, he's actually passing, is actually a lot better. The amount of 50-yard sprays to the other winger was crazy last season. So he's getting better and better. And I think it would have been a big miss for by what X and a lot of others have said he's really popular in the dressing room and obviously got that leadership experience. And and obviously he's defending his quality. So the fact we've got him at least till January, I think, from a selfish point of view, but from a West Ham fan point of view, is great. I don't think any of us obviously wanted him to go, but obviously you can understand his reasons for leaving that, which is totally understandable. They only got one career and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah. Obviously we've had our injury problems at centre back this season already. So the fact that he'll be available fairly soon, I think, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, for example, we mentioned Kera earlier, and obviously with Aguerd coming back at the World Cup, should we have signed Jan Bednarek on a loan? And considering where Dawson is now, where exactly in the pecking order would you put either of them?
Sorry, what Dawson and
Dawson or a potential replacement, for example? How vital would that replacement on loan have been? Whereabouts in the pecking order would you put them right now?
I think that unfortunately they would be fifth choice. I think the pecking order is Zuma, Kera obviously is fit, probably Ogbonna. And then Dawson obviously being as the fourth fit centre half, but I think that Aguerd probably would maybe potentially probably be it's probably a toss up then between who plays alongside Zuma out of him and Aguerd. I think it's right that we've kept 5 centre backs at the club, certainly 4 at the minute, because if Moyes is looking to go for this 3 at the back, we can't only have 3 centre halves. So I make Moyes right in saying, Dawson, unfortunately, mate, you've got to stay. But as you guys have already said, I think Dawson for me has gone about it the right way. I'm sure he's spoke of his disappointment to David Moyes. I want to go because of it sounds like it might be family reasons from what's being written in the press, etc. But unlike Diop, who obviously we've already mentioned, he hasn't refused to go on strike. And for me, there's a right way and a wrong way of trying to look to move on from a football club. Dawson's done it exactly right. Obviously, just goes to show his professionalism. And I'm sure that the rest of the players, will sort of appreciate that he is going to stick around for a little bit longer. And I'm sure that when he does get back out on the pitch, because I'm sure he's at some point now that he's a little bit closer to fitness, that he might get in the the League Cup or maybe some of the conference game, Euro conference games. That he will still give 100%. He's not going to be just sort of going in airy fairy with the tackles or anything like that. And obviously, which is the level of performance that we've come to see from him. But I hope that whatever West Ham have promised him, that they do their best to honour that agreement come either January or if it's at the end of the season and help him out, because I think unfortunately, as much as probably a lot of supporters would disagree with this, there are bigger things in life than playing football for 90 minutes twice a week or whatever it is. And quite rightly, Dawson is looking to put his family first, and I don't blame him for doing that at all, really.
I'm sure if he hasn't already, I'd like to think David Moyes would maybe give him more time off and things like that, which would be a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, which is one of the things he did with Lingard, wasn't it? When he was on loan, let him have an extra couple of days off with the training situation, which clearly Moyes is a family orientated man, and hopefully, as you just said, Bill, I think he'll do that as well with Big Craig as well.
Definitely.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Dawson's not been without his moments. I remember there was a Palace at home last season where he was at fault massively for both goals, but he's turned my opinion around completely. I heard nothing but he was, when he was at Watford, he was seen as one of the instruments of their massive decline from being relatively steady lower mid-table to out and out bottom of the league. His defensive performances for Watford were from what the one game that season I went to, and from what I'd heard from season ticket holders, just absolutely dreadful. But he's really turned it around, and it's one of those certain players suddenly perform well in certain situations, and I think everything sort of has come together for Dawson when playing with us, such as when he first played for us, there were no fans, there was no distractions, he could get on with the game. And the fact also that he came in sort of to replace the clown, who is now no longer a member of our squad, thankfully, and things like that. However, he would have gone with my blessing had he gone to either club, provided he had maybe not broken any of our players' legs when he came back to play us, preferably. And how he wasn't shortlisted for Ballon d'Or, absolute criminal. For me, but yeah, he would go with my blessing. He'd go with my blessing in January as well, and if he goes for free in summer, he's always struck me for all of the faults or anything when he came in. He always was struck me as someone that was professional, especially when he was at West Brom. And the other throwback with Craig Dawson is I remember a guy I went to university with, who was a Rochdale fan, turned around and said to us, he hasn't quite hit those heights, but he said that Craig Dawson would be a top Premier League defender, and he'd get a few caps for England, is what he said. He didn't say he'd be world class, but he'd say he'd be, playing for a good Premier League career, and he'll get a few caps for England. Didn't quite get the few caps for England, but he's had a bloody good career, and that was about 13 years ago, I got told, or 12 years ago, I got told that. But moving on to things you wouldn't have imagined 13 years ago, West Ham United are in a European group game, and it looks as if only one third of the tickets have only been sold by the looks of it. So are we going to be playing Steaua Bucharest, the grudge match of the century after they knocked us out in 1999? Are we going to see them with at best half capacity, similar as we had at Viborg, and we don't have the excuse of a trade union strike on the train lines? Mark, come to you for this one first. What do you think's going on with people not purchasing these tickets?
I think it's relatively simple. I think the cost of living, I think it's had a huge impact. I'll be honest, I can't remember the initial price for. I know you guys, I think, have got a package for the free tickets.
No, I didn't get that email, so I didn't get that.
I I did get an email, got a text message earlier to say that the adult tickets had the club have reduced the tickets now, which I think is the right thing to do. Maybe they could have done that a little bit sooner, but I think ultimately it's because of the cost of living. People are having to pick and choose certain things, which is understandable. So we just mentioned with Dawson putting family first. I think this is kind of like another example for me.
Midweek as well.
Week. And it's kind of like, with all due respect, don't get me wrong, I'm delighted that we're back in Europe again. It doesn't bother me with obviously Europa League or the Europa Conference League or whatever. But maybe for some people that hasn't quite, the Conference League that is, hasn't quite got the glamour of the Europa League, because it is still a new competition and people are maybe still trying to suss it out a little bit. And as I say, I then go back to the ticket prices, reduce them down, like what they've done before for the FA Cup matches and, and the League Cup matches, make them a flat rate and get bums on seats. That would have been what I would have done for this, and go for it like that, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've pretty much summed up most of the points there, Mark. But I mean, what I was going to come to JP was no, because I was going to. It leads in well, because my next question was going to be, JP, what would you like the club what would you like to see the club do to try and rectify this for the next European game?
Mark's given that answer, mate. I'm afraid just have it as a flat rate, simple as. Bearing in mind, let's not forget because this is a competition that was only been, as Mark said, this is the second season. The competition's been here now. West Ham haven't to have to pay a penny to host the games at this stadium. Surely they can pass that cost on, or savings, I should say, to us, because at the end of the day, I've got a horrible feeling that all the West Ham supporters that were taking the piss out of the Chelsea supporters that weren't there for the Zagreb game last night, that's going to come back on them massively when there's massive chunks of white seats on telly, because it's on BT Sport as well, I think, if I remember right, because it's the home game.
Yeah.
Big evidence on all over sport media that we haven't got people at home, much less over in another bloody country. And it's just, but Mark, you've hit the nail on the head for a lot of it there, mate. Yes, it's family reasons, as I interjected again. It's Thursday night, not many people can do it. Like, for example, Steve, Dennis, and Bill. You've met Steve a few times. He goes straight to work for his night shift for a lot of time straight after the games. So there's people that will be starting their shift when the game kicks off. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so it's gonna, it affects a lot of people, and it's a real shame. But but as I say, it's going to be the cost and the timing more than anything else. Put it down to kids, bringing kids for a quid back in again to get some kids involved in it. I mean, granted, they've only just gone back to school, but after a week of being at school, I would have loved to go and see West Ham for a quid. Do you know what I mean? Especially in this brand new school year as well, for that matter. It's just it's just not. Yeah, it's just not. Again, it's just bad. It's bad planning. As I said, West Ham. We as taxpayers are paying for that game to go ahead. If you look at it from that point of view, and then Dennis, don't say anything, mate. Come on. But it's just that's the point. It's the West Ham aren't forking out a penny, so why make it still 40-50 quid a ticket?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. I mean, I missed out on my ticket being reserved because I was out of the country and I couldn't buy it on my app, and I've gone and bought one in Bobbymoor Lower for about £10 cheaper than what.
Oh, here we go again.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. As a season ticket holder, for me, mine has been amazingly cheap because I've did the bundle, or the 3-match bundle, which ended up being 14 quid per match, which is an absolute
lucky
steal.
bugger. You lucky bugger. I had to pay fucking 80 quid for mine, but it's still 25, 26 quid. It's still a decent butt chunk nonetheless.
Yeah, so I'm Bournemouth upper band 5, and so I've got it quite lucky, but that should be the case for everyone. As Mark, you said, I think it should be, because it is, at the end of the day, it's a third-rate European competition, which it is in comparison to obviously the Europa League and Champions League. Of course, it is. And
won't be saying that when we win it, mate. Well, it's not third rate anymore.
I
know, mate. I'm doing
it's still
Don't tell Mourinho that either.
Yeah, exactly. But in comparison, obviously the big two, of course it is. But it should be the same prices as the early rounds of the Carabao Cup for me. Tenner, no matter where you sit, it's a tenner or 15 quid or whatever. That should be a given. Obviously we've got Stour and we've got Anderlecht, so it's a good group. But still, I mean, some of the prices I've been looking at, 1966 tickets or band 1, 45 quid. I mean, what's that all about? So, it should be. I mean, as I say, I'm right with my bundle. I'm quite happy, but as I say, that should be the case for everyone. So, that's a shame, really. But also, I think some people have obviously been in September. Some people might be on holiday still, or that kind of thing. And I think obviously the train prices are getting ridiculous. They're going up seemingly every month, aren't they? Like, and obviously the tube and all that. So that's just obviously still early season, isn't it? So it's just hopefully people will turn up on the night and there will be a decent enough crowd.
I mean, great, perfect for me to come back on that one. The only thing, if you haven't mentioned, fortunately, had, but the thing is, other factor to add in is the cost of prices. We're talking about having it kids for £1. That's vital, in my opinion, if you're taking your kids to a game, because as an adult, we're saying boycott the stands. It's really hard for a child to sort of understand that concept. And if your kid's hungry and he wants, for example, food, or she also wants food or sweets or a soft drink, it's very hard for them to say, no, you can't, because we're boycotting, when they're saying, oh, it's right there. I literally witnessed this conversation happen at the Spurs game at half time, where a dad was trying to convince his two children to not, no, we're not, I'd rather you not have that much, or try and limit it, because here's £10, see what you can get between you. And it's like, great, we get a drink between us now and a bag of sweets, because that's what a tenner gets you, is a drink and a bag of sweets, and they're sharing it between them.
And let's not forget that this is the same company that also does Wembley and Arsenal and or Chelsea. It's one of the.
I believe they do the major stadiums in London, is my understanding. And it's ridiculous.
And when Jules and I were seeing each other, because she's an England holder, and when her and her son would go to watch the England games at Wembley, they go to McDonald's beforehand. So they're not forking out ridiculous prices because it's Wembley.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll find out about the ridiculous prices when we go to see England Germany at the end of the month, lads.
Yeah.
So got that to look forward to. But looking forward to the end of this show, final thing, and obviously this is the fun section we always like to have. For anyone watching us for the first time, we like having a little fun question at the end. So after Mendy's best Mohamed Salah impression at the weekend, I'm just wondering what let's talk about some of the most infamous play acting. The list is quite long that you've seen, but the rule is it has to be at a West Ham game. It doesn't even need to be at home. But let's talk about some infamous incidences of play acting at West Ham games.
Well, the first one that jumps to mind for me is Swansea at home, with Allardyce's reaction to whatever his name was. I can't remember his name.
Chico Flores.
That was away. That was away.
That was away. Yeah,
that was away. But he did do it. He did it at home and got Carroll sent off. But away. That was when the laughter happened. Away.
Fell to the floor and just Allardyce just laughed in his face. But also, of course, Havertz on Saturday with coming together with Kufal. he just nudged him. All of a sudden, he's rolling over, holding his hands.
Yeah, Sterling's reaction I thought was brilliant to that. Sorry,
but no, those are literally a classic and a current for me. Those are the first two that come to mind.
How about you, Bill?
Well, I mean, there's been a couple of Anfield recently with Mohamed Salah. Some dodgy penalties. I think one in particular, Masuaku, was the unfortunate recipient. Unfortunately, don't think I think that was debatable. Let's put it kindly, that penalty. So I think Salah has had a couple of dodgy ones against us.
Mark.
Well, I think the lad Højbjerg for Tottenham last week was the amount of times he kept falling over on the floor and making a miraculous recovery was shocking. What I'm going to go for, I can't exactly remember now why he was down on the floor, but it was the Mark Noble and Andreas Herrera
Yeah.
Noble obviously ended up carrying him off the pitch, which I thought was brilliant.
I'm not going to lie, Mark, mate. I said to Steve when Højbjerg was on the floor, I said we need Noble to pick him up. I did. I genuinely said it to him. I genuinely said we need Noble to pick him up and carry him off.
Yeah, they're the ones for me.
I mean, my one I remember in the Championship under Allardyce, Billy Sharp getting Matt Taylor sent off. Lost a lot of it. That was when it.
Forgot about that.
As soon as you've said this, yes. That was the. I think that was the Valentine's Day game. I seem to remember.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Well, Dennis has been stunned into frozen again after. He's in. As soon as he said Billy Sharp, his internet cut off.
The only man that's got internet worse than me, I'll tell you, honestly.
Using dial-up.
He's using his phone card as near the point, isn't it? But honestly, we could spend an entire video talking about this alone. And, you know, going back even some of the stupid things we've seen in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, but it's just it's part of people say it's part of the game, but it really isn't, and it shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, you know, you're not gonna, if you know when you're at work, you're not gonna do the same thing. They're at work at the end of the day, you know. Sadly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's about time. It goes back to, I guess, in a way, to the first question we had today about the VAR thing. We want stronger decisions being made, and I think that kind of is what we're talking about, the play acting. Cut it out.
Exactly. And also for that matter, it's just bring in some rules where it won't be enforced, like that stupid rule that came in about 3 or 4 seasons ago where nobody was able to go to the ref apart from the captains to talk about things. How long did that last? 5 weeks? 6 weeks?
Well, not even that, mate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, just bring in professional play like it used to be, and you know, as I say, it won't last very long, but we'll have a few games where we're not talking about people to say, oh, he's the fucking, you know, when we got people shouting, you know, let them die and all the rest of it, and you know, we won't have that anymore.
Sorry, you lost me for 30 seconds, but I had everyone was having a bit of a so much respect for Billy Sharp for about a good year. And then he goes and does that, and it's kind of, you're almost like you can't have a go at him for going down, because it's like, yeah, you look a bit like a monster now. But I remember he went down pretending Taylor had slapped him across the face or something, and there was like replay showed there was no contact. Another one that's infamous. Bill will remember my reaction to Lacazette's theatrics away at Arsenal last season to get that penalty. Rolling around like an absolute Jesse, I believe is the term I liked using, in order to convince both VAR and the referee it was a penalty and a red card. There have been so many others over the time. I remember, I think it was Noel Hunt when he was at Reading, did this to basically every club. It'd go down easier than Paris Hilton. It was ridiculous. Anything, he would go down clutching his face.
Sorry if you're watching Paris, which you probably not.
Probably not. I mean, I guarantee you there will be loads of other. There'll be loads of other incidents I can think we can think of, but what I'd say is comment below any other instances of famous play acting or time wasting,
or infamous
that you
play
recall.
acting,
or infamous play acting.
Actually, why are you talking about time wasting, mate? As Bill, I think we were talking about this. Was it last week or very, very recently? The Reading game in the Championship, where mate was putting his socks up, and
Kebe
Constant just went, hang on a minute, no, I'm not having this. I'm not having that.
And God says I wouldn't really react to that play acting, because Collinson genuinely did whack him one in that game.
It was fully deserved
because it was supposed to be a free kick. He was taking so long. He's pulling his socks up, and Collins just went, right, I'm going for you. Boom.
Pretty much. But on that bombshell, I think we've just about covered everything we were talking about tonight. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, as well as signing up to the Patreon. For just £5 a month, you get unlimited content near enough and exclusive news that on the recent podcast, X has had a brilliant transfer window and called absolutely everything weeks ahead of what has happened. Provided my internet stays on for long enough. Bill, we've got to find out. Bill, anything you want to add?
No, just hope VAR works in the next few games for once. Cheers.
Good, brilliant. JP?
The only thing I just wanted to touch on really quickly was obviously today we found out that the Brighton Crystal Palace game is being called off because of the train strike. Why can't that? We've never had a game cancelled even during a train strike. Europa League aside, the last couple of weeks we've never had any games cancelled. So job for the boys from that sense, because the majority of the people that will work for those companies, obviously granted down in Brighton, the transport links aren't as good as they are in London, so you can argue that side of things. But at the same point, it's not the point. Games go on regardless. You can't just you can't pick and choose stuff. It's either games are called off if there's a train strike and it's affecting the local area. Because don't forget that people are coming from. It's all right for people like me that have got access to the tube and stuff. It's not too bad, but for people that have coming through on C2C, Greater Angular even, and even the Elizabeth line as well, for that matter. Coming back from that Europa League game was absolute fucking pandemonium because of that, and yeah. So another reason why we will feel there's an agenda against West Ham, because we had to play through that when that home game there was about a third in the stadium because of it. Yeah, because it's a derby between the two clubs, it's called off. So that's my 50 cents on that.
That's a good point to make. Mark, any gripes or any points you want to add to the show?
No, nothing for me from gripes or anything like that. I'm just looking forward to 3 points in the Conference League on Thursday and 3 more points against the Barcodes on Sunday afternoon.
The Barcodes. Not heard that term in probably since university, mate. Calling the Barcodes.
FC Zebra.
FC Zebra, indeed.
What a mic drop from Mark.
Yeah. I wonder if Matt, wonder how that Matty Longstaff Declan Rice debate's going on. How does that?
God,
save that for the preview. Save that for the
preview. Any event. We'll take very quickly. We'll take a score prediction for Thursday on the reverse way we've just gone. Mark, score predictions for Thursday. Bear in mind, it's probably going to be uploaded Friday. No, so I mean, this will be a laugh if we lose.
Excited there. I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0 was that?
Yeah.
2-0. JP, score prediction for Thursday?
I'm going 3-1.
3-1. And Bill?
Yeah, West Ham 2-1.
I'm going scrappy 1-0. So when knowing our luck, this will be uploaded after the result, and we all look like mugs when we win 5-0 or lose 1-0. So there we are. I'll just leave it on that bombshell, and we'll say, "Come on, you Irons!"
Come on, you Irons!
Come on, you Irons!